tuition is expensive. We know that it went up. The latest statistic was 1.8 billion, right? It's a lot of money. And I mean, being in business, in the tuition space, I would still tell parents that it's viable to want to save money. You don't need to always send your kids for tuition. You can send your kids for tuition last minute. And I stand by that. But I think it comes back to what's your child like? How early you want to start really is a function of how disciplined will you be without a scaffold.
Let me just give you a tip. If you're a parent and you don't know whether last minute would work or not, just simple. Give them.
What you described, I fully agree. Naga, you know, when a kid comes in, like 6 months before PSLE, and jumps like 3 grades, how much of a Superman do you feel like?
Okay, I don't take the credit all, Okay, maybe it sounds like a model answer.
Don't lie. Don't lie.
No, I don't know.
I'm going to play footage from our internal meetings.
No, you must always give credit to the kid also. You can prescribe all the things you want to prescribe to them, right? Like do all these practices, learn this spelling of these words and all that. But I think eventually the kid has to want to do it. Okay, there are kids, as you said, right, come in late. Like example, they are already P6. They realize after June holidays that they are weak. Okay, a bit late to realize, which I also urge parents, please join tuition earlier if your kid needs help. But people don't see it. Maybe they choose a different path. Maybe they're focusing on other subjects which they are weaker in and all that. So fine. So they eventually come to idea after June and then they realize, okay, we need help in English. So they come in. They start in July after June holidays. And nowadays, PSLE is earlier, right? End of September, around there, the already exam is hitting the exam already. So what happens is that they come there and then we assess them. We see their standard. It's very weak. So what we do is that we do a very, very specific approach to what they are weak in. So you want them to jump 2 grades. That's what a lot of parents will say. Some parents will say 1 grade or 2 grade. So what we can do is that we can see which areas they can actually improve fastest in.
So what are the kids? How would you profile the kids that will actually benefit from that? So of course we say, okay, don't leave it too late. Mm-hmm. But who are the ones that actually can make that great jump in a 3, 4, 5 month time frame? What are the ingredients?
I think there's no need to say ingredients, basically mindset. Because if you're coming in last minute or really the last stretch before the PSLE and you want to jump grades or jump 2 grades or 1 grade, you really have to come to the mindset that firstly, you have to really do what the teacher asks you to do. Of course, the teacher must be having a reality mindset, right? You can't ask the students to do what a kid who comes in January to do, like do all the work diligently. There's no time. And then, of course, I also always empathize with the kids who actually are weak in more than one subject. They have science to study for. It's a content subject. They have maths to study for, which needs much more practice than English. So you have to balance. So usually when they're weak in English, they're also weak in other subjects also, like science, because it needs language, right? So they are balancing 2 subjects and there's like 2 months left. So if there are a kid who comes in and the kid will be ready to listen, exactly, and then do, and then also revise. Like example, if you are those kind of kids who will just do for the sake of doing assessments, just do question after question, you can do 100 questions, but you can get all 100 questions wrong. And after that, you don't do anything about it, then sorry, you're not the last minute category. You can't.
So what I've found, mine is a different level and different subject, right? Yeah. We're talking about JC Econ, but so we have those spectacular cases too, people coming in after. The latest people come in is after prelims, which is nuts, to be honest.
Yeah, I also have that.
Yes. I don't advocate that. But I think there's a larger number that comes in between June and November. So there's about 5 months to work with. And what I've observed over the last 10 years is that if you have been a consistent student, meaning you studied for every test, you attempt to understand the content, you attempt to, read your notes and practice, but it's not working for you, and you come to my classes, you can get that great jump. You can get your U to A, your U to B.
Correct.
your you to see because what you were lacking is examination techniques.
Yep.
That means I don't need to correct your foundation. And as you said, I don't need to correct your attitude. You have always tried. You just didn't have the roadmap. And I think my role, as it is your role, is we give you the roadmap. We tell you, do these 10 things, focus fire. Here's what the expectations are. You're just going to execute on it. And I think those are the kids that, do spectacularly well at the end. And again, like you, while I like to take the credit, I would say 70% it's on them, because if you come in then, or let's flip it around. If you came in January in J1 and you don't want to do any of the work, I can't help you.
It can't help you.
Right? I might be able to get you to a C with a lot of dragging and hair pulling, figuratively. But, that's kind of as much as I can take you. Yeah. So I think a lot of the last minute kids, I think they deserve a lot of credit for being, coming in with the right attitude and being able to put in the work and being willing to put in the work. I think that's like tremendously important.
Also, there are categories. I myself, right, as a person, I work better under pressure. Maybe I shouldn't tell that to my boss, but anyway, I work best under pressure. Like when there's a time limit and all that, or there's some deadline to reach.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, yeah. And then I work better with that. Good stress, I call it. Healthy stress. So if you are that kind of if you are that kind of kid, right, who can work under stress better, that means, you feel that, it's 2 months away, then you will actually open your book and study. You'll feel that pressure to do it. Then I think the last minute tuition thing will work for you.
It's called procrastinator.
Yeah. That's a negative term. I would like to put it in a more positive frame. They work best under pressure, right? So I think that kind of people, if you join PSLE student, if you join in July, I think because you will really be listening, you'll really be doing what exactly the teacher is asking you to do, and also you'll be really looking out for things you have understood wrongly and correcting yourself, and make sure you don't make the same mistake again, because there's not much time. So then I think you can actually join later. But
sorry. I think the issue is, okay, for PSLE, I think it's doable for math and science.
Yep.
I would argue it's less doable for English.
Yes.
Because it's a more, let's call it, foundation heavy subject.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that's harder to fix at the 11th hour.
Correct. That's the key word. Fix.
Harder to fix. Not impossible to circumvent. There are examination strategies that can elevate you a little bit, but if, for example, forming sentences is a challenge for you, you can't fix composition in 6 weeks or 8.
If you talk about fixing, right? What is really fixing, if you look into it? If you come in July with AL6 for English, that means, okay, let's just talk about compo. That means your compo, the content is weak. Your language that means there's lots of grammar error. Your sentence structure is weak. You have poor punctuation, spelling errors, and all that. So this is what it is. So I can assure you, if you follow my structure, how to get the content out, like we have this 4M approach and all that. So that will solve the content problem, basic. And then we give a structure to check your grammar, make sure you don't make repeated spelling errors and all that. And for that kind of student, I always say, don't need to go into complex compound sentences. Just make simple sentences, because prevent errors is more important. Yep. So that will actually help you maybe push up 1 or 2 grades. That means from a 6, you can go to 4. That is a very feasible, doable thing when you come in July. But as you said, that's my fixing for AL6. Yeah. But AL6 to AL1, that's not fixing. That's magic. Cannot. Not cannot. I've not done it. But I wouldn't say impossible.
I think it's fair to say cannot is cannot.
Cannot is cannot.
Cannot is cannot. It's true, right? Because there is a very similar phenomenon that we see among JC kids beyond just econs, which is a lot of the JAE kids that do O-levels and in JC. Actually, I would say a large number of them are not as consistent, meaning a lot of them end up getting 6, 8, 10 points by cramming in the last 2 to 3 months. And the danger, okay, I don't know about, again, I don't think English is that doable.
Yeah. It's a language.
I think we should invite Alison here one of these days. She will explain how doable it is. But I don't think it's that doable for English. But for math and science, people do it. And I think the scary thing is they think that's a viable strategy and they try to replicate that in JC, you're going to crash and burn because the content kind of multiplies, right?
Yes.
So I think generally my approach is like, I tell students and parents, don't raise your blood pressure unnecessarily, right? So we talked about gaming previously. And the reason why I could game, which is actually something I didn't explain the last time around, is that I started studying for A-levels in September.
Oh.
So this is a strategy I share with my kids, right? Which is when I was studying for prelims, I didn't study the entire thing. So for example, like math, let's say there's 26 topics. I told myself I want to be good at 13 for prelims. So I fail, never mind. But I will look at all the topics that I'm good at, or rather the topics that I prepared for. And if I score an A in those, I get 0 for the rest. I don't care. So I studied for A-levels with a 10 to 12 week runway, knowing that my prelim is just a checkpoint. That's why I say I like exams, you see, because it's a checkpoint. I don't care whether I fail my prelims. You see, because it's just to tell me whether my prep work is adequate and what the next course of action should be. So the reason I could game at the end was because by the time A-levels started, I was done studying. Right? So the cramming is not a good idea because there are things that simply needs time and consistency, and it just lowers your blood pressure by doing things early.
Basically, right, knowing yourself, like knowing who you are, how, and then also planning according to your personality, how you want to achieve your grade, whatever you want to achieve, really matters. Like, you know yourself that this is how you would work, and this is what you want to do. This is how you're going to reach your the goal you have set for yourself. Then I think that works for you. But I think a lot of times, many students might not know. So these students, I don't think last minute would work because they don't even know themselves. They don't know who they are. They don't know how they're going to achieve. They think that they will, the worst is that they think that they can reach there, but they're not going to reach there. Sometimes we have to tell them that this is not going to work. So those kind of students, I think as parents, if you're there with them, you know that they are like that. Start early, please. So that they, especially for languages like English, so that, eventually at least the teacher will be there to guide them through the process. It's a slow process, but at least we have the time to do it. If you're last minute, if your kid doesn't know themselves, doesn't understand where their weaknesses are, how they're going to reach where they want to reach, or don't even know what is their goal, then I think last minute will be very, as you said, raise the blood pressure for the student, for the teachers, also for the parents.
I think, I totally understand that tuition is expensive, right? We know that it went up, the latest statistic was 1.8 billion, right? It's a lot of money. And I would say, being in business, being a teacher, in the tuition space, I would still tell parents that actually it's viable to want to save money and not want to spend. You don't always need to go for tuition.
Of course.
You don't need to always send your kids for tuition. You can send your kids for tuition last minute. And I stand by that. But I think it comes back to, what's your child like? And I think that's especially important to analyze for the primary school kids, because what I described about study habits, that was JC. Primary school, I was just going with the flow, right? I was lucky. I had a very good school teacher. My form teacher was fantastic. But we stayed back every day. I think for the last, term 3, 4, every day we stay back. Because back then, I think one teacher teaches English, math, and science,
yes,
right?
Correct,
they teach everything, right?
My
form teacher taught everything.
Yes.
So every day we stay back and we do a full paper. So every day we get off school at like 4+. But it's good, right? Because you need that drilling. You need that consistency.
Of course,
So you need to know the child, because at primary level, even I at 12, I'm not so disciplined. I'm not going to sit down and go, hey, where's my assessment book? No one's going to do that,
Nobody
right?
will do it.
But you need to know whether you have clocked the hours to do the work consistently, meaningfully or not. And I think what we provide as a center is we give you scaffolding.
Of course.
We give you a program that you can be on so that you don't have to worry about where to source for the materials, what strategies to use. You just follow the playbook. Right? And how early you want to start really is a function of how disciplined will you be without a scaffold. And I think for some families with the parents, if the mother is really involved, mommy or daddy is at home every day, right? And then, or half a day, and then they're there, give you your assessment book, monitor your work, check your work. Then you don't need tuition, right? I think it's okay. And you can leave it to the end, just to go for workshops, or something, just as a final boost for the 2-3 months, you're probably fine. But if you don't have that consistency, it's going to be very difficult to fight fires at the end.
Like let me just give you a tip, right? Like, a very simple, if you're a parent and you don't know, whether your kid is an independent learner, whether last minute would work or not, and all that. So, and then whether you need to send early, right? Just simple. Give them an assessment book and ask them to do, whether it's maths, English, or whatever, with the answers at the back, right? Usually assessment book, the answers at the back. If they actually do, and they turn to the answer, not to copy, but to turn, and then they mark, and then they check what is the right answer. And after that, you ask them, and then they can explain to you why they were wrong.
That's a high bar for a primary school kid, but you're right.
No, but if you can go through that communication with them, just don't talk like a very hard parent, like, why is it wrong? That kind of thing. Then it will not work. Like, okay, this got it, this is wrong, and this is the correct answer. You checked it, right? You first, you must observe. If your kid is turning over to check what's the correct answer, and then also go back to the question and think why he didn't get it and how to get it the next time, I think then he's an independent learner. He actually is willing to learn to get it right. Then I think you can bring it to the last part where he'll be able to, the last part towards the end, towards the exam, you can send him for tuition and all that, so that he will actually listen to the teacher, the specific instruction, like how we do it at Hess. We actually look at the child's needs. Yeah. Like example, if they want to improve 2 grades, I will look specifically into sections which will do immediate jumps, like things like the paper 2 stuff, like synthesis. Yeah. From 10 marks, there's a lot of students who are getting 2 upon 10. So, and then why? And then you check that it's all a spelling error or sentence structure or punctuation error. Then we do a bit of drilling. We just teach them, okay, these are your areas of weaknesses. Please make sure you check that. They will take it and then they will improve immediately.
You see, that takes me back to data points. Previously we talked about data points and testing, and I'm like, I like tests. I like tests precisely for this reason, right? Because if you don't test, then you don't know. If you don't know, then you don't know what to do. But I think the thing I will add to that is, so what you described, I fully agree. That's what every good school student will actually do when we are revising for exams, right? Because actually, I think in my time in Raffles and all that, people don't go for that much tuition. I think it just progressively got more. And what we do in exam season when we study is we do the questions, we read the answer keys, and we self-correct and we do corrections. And that's a really important habit. Primary school might be challenging, but why not, right? That's a good habit to get them started on. But what I would add also is that the data point matters when it comes to tests, not just what the grade is, but what the component scores are. So I find that doing this for my new students who come in as well. So sometimes parents are really worried. They come in maybe, let's say June or July, J2, and they're like, oh, my kids are... Parents like to ask me this question, right? Which is, my child's getting an E now. Is it salvageable? And I give them very honest answers. I will typically look at it, and what I'm looking at is not the overall grade. I'm looking at the components. I'm trying to read between the lines, look behind the scores and go, why is this person not doing well? Did you not study? Were you writing rubbish? Or you were writing all the correct things but not answering the question, right? And that's where the analysis matters. Correct. And I think that's the same thing for primary English, for secondary English, which is you need to look at why. Why are you failing? And that will determine what the course of action is and whether you need a long-term prescription or a short-term prescription will suffice.
Yeah, so you really have to look at how the kid is going about doing the learning process, whether he's able to check himself or whether he needs somebody else to check it for him.